Okay. We should get to your college fiasco situation. And before we start that, we should also clarify, you didn't move to the U.S. to run away from the college. That's not what happened at all. This has been planned. Like, immigration has been planned for a number of years.
Yeah, I wouldn't run away from
it's
that.
America.
Yeah.
No. It's just like, it's also a political benefit. I was stressed out about you living in downtown Toronto. People knew where you lived. Neighborhood I thought has been uncomfortable since 2016 when there were reporters down the street. And
yeah,
I was
well,
just
I lived in
it's
kind
not,
of a Champagne socialist neighborhood, and most of the people there have been positively predisposed to be, but a substantial minority have definitely not been. And I'm less popular in my own than I am anywhere else in the world, literally, and that's very annoying. And my son, Julian, your brother, as you know, he lived on the street too, which was part of the reason I lived there, right? Because and he also was inclined to move away because it had become uncomfortable. And I didn't ever expect that to be something that happened in Canada, but under Justin and the woke mob, that's definitely something that's happened.
I didn't realize Julian moved out of the neighborhood because he was uncomfortable. I mean, I was certainly uncomfortable.
There were other reasons, but I don't think he would have moved. Like, part of the reason was we weren't there as often as we had originally envisioned. So there was less reason for him to be there. And there was certainly no reason for him to be there if it was uncomfortable. You know, and I'm not very happy about that. Like, we lived in that neighborhood for 20 years.
And neither am I.
And I was
stupid people.
Very good to people in that neighborhood. And so was Tammy. And you guys grew up there. And so the fact that it had become politicized it was educational, put it that way.
It was that neighborhood was filled with people who would have called their neighbor on someone who had a party during COVID or had their family members over during COVID. It turns out that's where we lived. That's why I was like,
we
Toronto.
also want to... Yes, Toronto was very bad during the lockdown. Very bad. Very bad. And the Toronto District School Board is an absolute disgrace. It's probably the most woke institution in North America, which is really saying something. And the city is basically run by the wife of the last leader of the Socialist Party in Canada. And so the goal in Toronto was to turn it into Portland or San Francisco. And that's happening. You know, there's tent cities and street crime in Toronto, and they've just let the traffic situation in Toronto degenerate completely, because you can excuse your incompetence as a city administrator, it turns out, by pretending that you're a green utopian and working for the benefit of the planet while you fail to do your job and let the city degenerate into a snarled up rat hole. So, yeah. Anyways, apologies for all that, but it has been. See, I didn't know how stressed I was in my neighborhood until I left, and that's not pleasant. It's not pleasant.
I know. I could tell because I left and I came back and it was just like heavy. It's heavy. People in Toronto are stressed. Hopefully in October things turn around and things start to right themselves. But if you fly into Toronto after you've been away for a while, it's stressful.
The problem, we're going to find out in Canada that things are a lot worse than we thought, because I'm sure that Trudeau is so spectacularly incompetent that there's endless discoveries of corruption and idiocy to be unveiled. And I'm afraid for Pierre Poilievre, he's going to be left with a terrible mess and will immediately be blamed by remnants of the legacy media, which he'll also help dispense with, because I think the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation is on the chopping block, which it richly deserves. $1.4 billion in direct subsidy a year, $600 million in government advertising. You go to the YouTube channel and look at the last 50 things they posted, and this includes whole shows like specials that they've made, sitcoms, etc., where they're posting them for free. They all have under 100 views each.
Oof.
Which means that the only people who watched them are the people who made them, and probably not even then. And of course, they disallow comments because CBC is too clueless to understand that if you're going to be successful in the social media world, you have to understand the ecosystems that you're trying to participate in. And comments on YouTube are actually mandatory, not optional. And so anyways, it's a sad scenario, and I wish Danielle Smith plenty of luck in Alberta as she's trying to take on the federal government. She's a tough cookie and a reliable person as far as I'm concerned. And Pierre he's got his rough edges and he's got sharp teeth, and someone like that is necessary, but he's also maturing very rapidly into his role. I really like his wife, and he's got an actual family instead of the pretend family that our friend Justin had. And it's not a facade or a lie like Justin's whole life. And so with any luck, next October, Canada will flip hard, and much harder than the United States has. Obviously Trump won a spectacular victory, but it's still about a 50-50 split in the United States. Whereas in Canada, it's going to go 90-10, I think.
You think? I don't know.
Oh, it will in terms of the election results. Oh, I could see a situation easily where the Liberals lose their party status, because you have to have a certain number of seats. You have to win a certain number of ridings, constituencies, to maintain your status as a party. I could easily see that, not the Liberals failing at that and actually not existing as a political party anymore. That'll be Justin Trudeau's legacy.
Well, they've moved so far left, there isn't a political party there.
Well, there's certainly not a socialist political party left.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now the NDP, the Socialist Party, will pick up a fair number of the people who are too daft to know that the whole woke mob scene of idiocy is over. And there's, the NDP in Canada has picked up 20% of the population since like 1960. That's unlikely to change. But the Conservatives are going to win an overwhelming victory, and they're actually conservative, God willing. And so, which means in American terms that they're basically classic liberals, by the way, because Canadian Conservatives are centrists by by the standards of any other country.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Anyways, it's a painful thing to watch the country degenerate into fractious poverty as a consequence of nothing other than immaturity, which is like the hallmark of Trudeau. He's so immature. He looks like a 14-year-old. It's no wonder he was like, I learned this when I was a therapist. I learned to look at people to see how old they were psychologically. Like, I could watch my clients while they were telling me stories, especially stories about their past. They would take on the facial expressions of children sometimes when they were talking about past experiences, especially traumatic experiences. And I learned how to see how old people were. And I swear, this is not a personal slur. Trudeau is somewhere between 13 and 15. And that's not good when he was at a Taylor Swift concert the other day, non-ironically handing out friendship bracelets while Montreal burned. It's not acceptable. And so he was the pretty boy of the progressive movement. And he's going to get his comeuppance, but I'm afraid as a wounded narcissist that he's going to do plenty of damage. The country doesn't deserve a leader as spectacular as he is, and he's certainly going to show that to everyone in this last year of his rule, because he'll take his revenge. He will take his revenge. He's going to do that with Bill C-63, which is the most totalitarian bill I've ever seen.
You think they'll actually pass that?
It's through first reading. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I think they'll pass it.
That's
I think they'll pass it.
crazy. Okay, thank goodness you moved.
Yeah, well, it's a bill that purports to protect children from online harm. And that's the beginning of the bill and the end of the bill. Mm-hmm. And the bill is literally the creation of a new extrajudicial system that isn't bound by the rules of legal investigation or guilt, which has an unlimited range of expansion and all the powers of a court. And more than any court in Canada has ever had, as far as I can see.
And can you tell people just briefly what the bill is about?
Well, here's one of the elements of the bill. So you'll be able to take the complaining types, so the informants.
80% of the population.
No, it's not that high. It's about 30%, I would say.
That's still scary.
I know, it's plenty. You'll be able to take someone in front of a provincial magistrate because you're afraid that sometime in the next year they might commit a hate crime, which is the sort of thing that people are being pursued for in the UK now, although they call them non-crime hate incidents. They're not crimes there, although they're recorded and they come up if you do an employment search for someone. And there's thousands of people persecuted for non-crime hate incidents, including journalists. Non-crime hate incidents.
So
Orwellian. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyways, if I'm afraid that you might commit a hate crime, on the basis of my fear, if the magistrate agrees that my fear is warranted, and God only knows how that is to be adjudicated, it would certainly be warranted, let's say, in my situation, because I'm a repeat offender, as the college has so